Nero is a highly infamous monarch in Roman history, particularly seen as a tyrant by many, especially Christians, due to his brutal actions during his reign. He killed his own mother and several wives, executed numerous senators, and indulged in luxury, debauchery, and an obsession with art and architecture, earning him the notorious reputation of Nero the Bloodthirsty. Later historians believe that Nero did not entirely neglect his duties as a ruler. On the contrary, he implemented many policies beneficial to the people during his reign, leading to a mixed assessment of his rule as having both merits and demerits. However, the Christian Church holds a starkly different view, accusing Nero of falsely blaming Christians for the Great Fire of Rome in AD 64 and subjecting believers to public persecution and massacre. Apostles Paul and Peter were also martyred under his regime, leading the Church to view Nero as an anti-Christian tyrant. Thus, Nero's historical image becomes complex and elusive. It has been said, when you cannot understand someone, you should look into their childhood. There you will find everything you want to know. Indeed, childhood is crucial for everyone, as whether joyful or painful, childhood experiences largely shape one's personality and future path in life. Understanding Nero's past does not mean we can forgive his actions, but it does allow us to comprehend to a large extent why he became the person he did. Let us now delve into the long-sealed past of Nero. In AD 40, when Nero was 3 years old, his father passed away due to excessive indulgence. At that time, his uncle Caligula, who had become the Roman emperor, not only failed to assume the responsibility of caring for and educating him, but also ordered the confiscation of his inheritance rights and subsequently exiled Nero's mother. Fortunately, Nero was adopted by his aunt, and from then on, he led the respectable life of a typical noble youth. Not long after, a significant political upheaval took place in the Roman Empire, resulting in the assassination of Emperor Caligula. The new emperor, Claudius, ascended to the throne and restored all of Nero's previously confiscated inheritance. Later, his mother, Agrippina the Younger, also returned. By this time, Nero had already developed a deep bond with his aunt, surpassing even the affection he held for his mother, Agrippina the Younger. Observing this, Agrippina became resentful of Nero's aunt. She accused Nero's aunt of treason in front of Claudius. The wise Emperor Claudius, of course, would not easily believe such accusations without evidence. Agrippina coerced Nero into testifying against his aunt, and though Nero was reluctant, he eventually succumbed to his mother's threats. As a result, Nero's aunt was executed, and the beautiful world Nero cherished was destroyed. Agrippina the Younger, having become the wife of Claudius, personally demonstrated to Nero how to be ruthless. She placed her confidants in positions of power, such as the commander of the Praetorian Guard, using them to eliminate political and romantic rivals. She also coerced Claudius into abandoning his own son as the heir to the empire, instead designating Nero for this role. Furthermore, Claudius adopted Nero as his son and arranged for Nero to marry his daughter Octavia from a previous marriage. Claudius could be said to have shown extreme favor to Agrippina and her son, but just 3 years later, Claudius died. Many suspect that Agrippina murdered Claudius, especially since Claudius's own son had already been killed, allegedly at Agrippina's behest. Thus, Nero became the head of the empire at the age of 17. During his 14 years of reign, Nero accomplished numerous tasks, with his main achievements outlined as follows. Domestically, Nero devised methods to combat the forgery of wills and capped the fees for lawsuit defenses to prevent the exploitation of commoners by the elite through legal means. He also reduced many indirect taxes and made government tax records public to deter official corruption and fraud. Moreover, Nero lowered grain prices, ensuring that even the impoverished Roman citizens could afford basic sustenance. On the foreign front, Nero promoted 3 distinguished generals, Corbulo, Vespasian, and Suetonius Paulinus. He appointed them to suppress the Boudica uprising in Britannia, halt the westward invasion by the Parthian Empire, and suppress the rebellion of the Jews in the Holy Land. Of course, these are Nero's achievements, yet they also reflect the influence of the legacies left by his predecessors. In the early part of Nero's reign, he did many good deeds. For a period, Nero would randomly distribute various gifts to the masses daily, including food, clothing, and livestock, and even gold, silver, jewels, and real estate. For the highly influential Praetorian guards, Nero would distribute free bread monthly. He did not forget to provide annual salaries to destitute senators to honor their past contributions. Nero also ordered the cancellation of taxes owed to the state and imperial treasuries and abolished the 4% tax on the purchase of slaves. Besides, Nero reduced the rewards for informers to 25% to curb the endless culture of denunciation. He granted many Greek cities their autonomy and forbade the pursuit of those who wrote poetry attacking and satirizing him. These actions reflected Nero's competent side as a monarch. If it is said that Nero, like all normal people, wore many different masks on different occasions, then besides the masks of benevolence and efficacy, Nero also frequently wore the masks of absurdity and cruelty. Due to being controlled by his mother, Agrippina the Younger, for a long time, Nero had developed a deep hatred for her, especially when he remembered his aunt. This feeling would intensify even more. When Nero fell in love with Poppaea, the wife of his favorite Otho, he went to great lengths to have her. However, Agrippina the Younger opposed the marriage between Nero and Poppaea, driving Nero into madness. All his resentment erupted at this moment. The eventual outcome was that in AD 59, Nero's Praetorian Guard murdered Agrippina the Younger, and Nero was able to make Poppaea his second wife as he had wished. It is astounding that an emperor would go so far as to kill his own mother over a woman. Logically, having finally obtained the woman he loved, Nero should have cherished her properly, and indeed he did so at first. However, this situation did not last long. A few years later, Nero accidentally kicked Poppaea to death while she was pregnant. But that was not the most absurd part. What came later was even more outrageous. By the time Nero realized what had happened, the tragedy was irreversible. Nero mourned for a long time until he met a very handsome man. Astonishingly, he had this man castrated and married him simply because he bore a striking resemblance to Poppaea. Which of these actions could be expected from a sane person? Therefore, it's accurate to say that Nero was psychologically abnormal. Later, in pursuit of Messalina, who had become another man's wife, Nero forced her husband, Vestinus, to commit suicide, leading to his third marriage. Nero's attraction to other men's wives was actually because they resembled his mother. This implies that deep down, Nero still missed Agrippina the Younger, which led to his regret and inner conflict. When discussing Nero, especially among those with a Christian background, he is often labeled as a tyrant who persecuted Christians, and the Great Fire of Rome is an inescapable topic. On July 18th, AD 64, a massive fire broke out in Rome, lasting for 1 day, according to some accounts, or 6 days and 7 nights by others. The fire started near the Circus Maximus and resulted in 3 of Rome's 14 districts being completely destroyed, while 7 more were partially affected, leaving only 4 districts untouched. The fire caused thousands of deaths and left approximately 200,000 people homeless. The role that Nero and Christians played in this great fire has been a subject of controversy. Some argue that Nero himself initiated the fire to facilitate the expansion of the imperial palace, as the existing city of Rome was mainly composed of civilians' huts, making demolition costs prohibitively high, hence the decision to simply burn them down. Others suggest that Nero's motive for setting the fire was to pin the blame on Christians, thereby serving his aim of persecuting the Christian faith. Meanwhile, there are also theories that Christians started the fire as an act of resistance against the rule of the Roman Empire, targeting Nero, who was the reigning emperor at the time. The theory that Nero set the fire and blamed the Christians is the most widely circulated among the public. In Nero's time, there was never any claim that Nero was responsible for burning Rome. The earliest accusations of Nero starting the fire come from the 5th century AD, after Christianity had been established as the state religion of the Roman Empire. By this time, Christianity had gained much more influence than during Nero's era. Given the repeated persecution by Roman emperors and rulers before, the attitude of Christianity towards Roman emperors and rulers was generally quite hostile, with few exceptions aside from Constantine the Great and Theodosius the Great. Therefore, it is entirely possible that the Christian community fabricated lies to attack Roman rulers. At the time of the Great Fire, there were already plots within the empire to overthrow Nero. Besides the mentally unstable, the most likely culprits of arson would be religious zealots, and indeed, there were many such individuals in Rome at the time, members of extremist Christian groups. Therefore, demonizing Nero's image was quite natural for them. Thus, Christians had more motive to set fire to the city of Rome than Nero did. Looking back at Nero's historical image overall, Nero is a rather complex figure, embodying many different facets. Observing Nero is akin to playing a jigsaw puzzle game, where different people find different pieces, and only by putting these together can one see a relatively complete image. Therefore, regardless of which aspect we see, it can be said that these are all the real Nero. That's all for today's program. Welcome to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode.